don't think that we have done enough things here at home to going after them.
You told me about that, like going after the cash here in America. Like that, you've said that would cut off their lifeblood because they literally ship cash back to Mexico in 18-wheelers.
Yes, absolutely.
In our community development programs, there's resources there in our family resource centers, but we also are going to have a reinstitution of the Angelino card, something that Mayor Garcetti started during COVID, that will actually provide cash assistance to people. Because, you know, you have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work, and they are in need of cash. You know, I have met with family members who they needed 2 incomes in order to make the rent. Well, 1 income was lost in a raid when someone was detained, and this woman with her children now is concerned that she might face being evicted and being homeless. And so it's that type of emergency assistance, and we're fortunate that there's a lot of philanthropic partners who have contributed, and many more I hope that will join in and contribute.
Meanwhile,
we just found out we're not going to be able to get any irrigation water, which shuts us down as ranchers.
We're just kind of looking at just having to go out of business, you know, because that's what we do here is raise cattle, and if we don't have any water, that's going to be taken away from us.
Well, will go dry.
What do you do here?
What do you do with dry land that you can't grow anything on? We're all going to have to go out of business.
a few moments later.
About 600 homeowners in Diablo Grande have 1 month to protest a rate hike that would bring their water bills up to about $600 a month.
What?
The rate increase would be through Proposition 218, a California mandate where local governments can impose taxes or fees, but they need a majority voter approval. If the residents do not approve the rate increase, then Kern County Water Agency shuts off their water on July 1st.
What?
So the residents want to know.
For the customers who have paid their debts and they have abided by the rules, and for the mismanagement of the water district at that time who mismanaged the money, for us to be held liable for their mistake by us being red tagged, how is that legal? That's what I'm really struggling with mentally right now.
Apart from the risk of their water being turned off, the most frustrating part for most residents is that this debt to the Kern County Water Agency accrued through no fault of their own. Now, we did reach out to Assemblymember Juan Alanis, who's been trying to help these residents in his district. He says this is a complex and difficult situation, but he has secured, in the worst case scenario, bottled water for residents should the water be shut off.
What?
Meanwhile,
so let me get this straight. While large chunks of Southern California are literally burnt to a crisp, people are losing their homes in an instant. Their entire livelihoods gone. Everything that they have known is no more. And yet we have Gavin Newsom over here asking the government for $50 million in order to do what? To help the people of the state that he helped burn down? No. He's asking for $50 million in order to, quote unquote, combat Donald Trump. That's right. He's looking to anti-Trump or Trump-proof California before January 20th. Now imagine this. The American people have spoken. We want the change that this man has promised. This man right here, DJT, aka Donald Django Trump, because this is a free man we're dealing with here today, folks. This man right here, the evil menaces, the Joker himself, up to nothing but absolute, pure, unadulterated chaos, is more concerned with Trump-proofing a state which had 10 counties that flipped red, as opposed to focusing on what should matter. Again, I've said it once and I'll say it a million more times. These people show you exactly who they are time and time again. If you do not believe them, folks, you will continue to get the very same result and worse. Probably, likely, and definitely worse.
Churla is the group instigating many of the riots in Los Angeles. Last year, it received $34 million in California taxpayer funds from Governor Gavin Newsom and state Democrats. The riots are violent, aggressive, and growing in size.
we have been able to purchase an 83,000 square foot building with an investment from the state of California. So the state of California has actually provided Chirla with a $20 million grant, an infrastructure grant that was supported by Senator Mayalena Durazo, the Speaker of the Assembly at that time, Rendon, Senate Pro Tem Tony Atkins, and also the Governor Gavin Newsom.
Ya verga, sigue tirado. Arremanga la frente, Cerro. Arremanga la frente. Anda, de verga. Ya abre la puerta. Chíqueselo, plebe. Ahí, arremanga la plaza, chinga tu madre. Date vuelta. ¡Ay, a la verga! ¡Anca y sépan a la verga! ¡Ay, bola de vergas! Chécalo ahí, arrepétele para que la meto por la ventana. Mira. ¿Quién es? Mátalo. Dale para atrás. Aquí. ¡Ey! ¿Dónde están, ranas? Vámonos, gobierno, vámonos. ¿Dónde están, ranas? ¡La suerte! Mira, llegó su padre, Vargas. ¡Ay! Llegó su padre, Vargas, a la loma.
Ahora llegó la noticia que andamos buscando al perdido. Parece un gallino.
The Flores twins, Pedro and Margarito Flores, were notorious drug traffickers from Chicago who played a key role in the dismantling of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's Sinaloa cartel. They rose to prominence as two of the most successful and influential drug traffickers in the United States during the early 2000s. The twins operated a vast drug distribution network that spanned the U.S., trafficking cocaine and heroin on behalf of the Sinaloa cartel. The Flores twins were smuggling over 1,500 kilograms of cocaine per month into the U.S., generating millions of dollars in profit. In 2008, the twins decided to cooperate with U.S. authorities, fearing for their lives amid escalating violence and cartel power struggles. Their testimony and evidence helped bring down key figures within the Sinaloa cartel and exposed its operations. The Flores twins were sentenced to 14 years in prison in 2015 for their drug trafficking crimes. Their cooperation earned them reduced sentences despite their significant involvement in the drug trade.
As a government informant, he is former Sinaloa cartel kingpin Margarito J. Flores Jr., who joins us here on set. Jay, it's great to see you again. We've been together on several occasions. I feel like it's necessary every time to clarify for the audience why you are wearing that mask, why you're wearing the sunglasses.
I'm fear of persecution. My life will continue to be in danger. I testify against the most deadliest and powerful drug cartels that existed. So yes, it's for my safety. And I know that many individuals might think that I still look the same, and but I don't. But I do it for my safety.
¡Pura malliza la verga, ¡Pura malliza!
Taking it to where the cartel's territories, as we saw with the bombing of a boat with drug traffickers, I think it sends a clear message to every drug trafficking organization and cartel that the Trump administration is taking this very seriously.
Mr. Secretary, what legal authority did the Pentagon invoke to strike that boat full of drug smugglers?
We have the absolute and complete authority to conduct that. First of all, just the defense of the American people alone. 100,000 Americans were killed each year under the previous administration because of an open border and open drug traffic flow.
Was there an
That is an
imminent-
assault on the American people. I said we smoked a drug boat, and there's 11 narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean. And when other people try to do that, they're going to meet the same fate.
And they're not playing any games.
But how high and how far do we have to escalate the war? Jay, you have talked about this with me. I mean, the number of drugs coming into Mexico and then coming into America, and the amount of money going back into Mexico, it's like every time we do something, it's swatting at a gnat. There's a swarm of gnats when it comes to the cartels.
Yes, I believe the seizure of these precursor chemicals, I believe it was 600,000 kilograms of precursors, that has a more significant impact on drug trafficking overall. But I think it's a multifaceted approach. It needs to continue. But as Mr. Holman said, that we're taking it to them, away games. But we all know that the team always plays better at home, and I don't think that we have done enough things here at home to going after them.
You told me about that, like going after the cash here in America. Like that, you've said that would cut off their lifeblood because they literally ship cash back to Mexico in 18-wheelers.
Yes, absolutely. It's the reason why I'm here. It's the reason why I started doing this. I run a consulting company called Kingpin to Educator, and what I'm pushing for is that we do more going to go after the bulk U.S. currency that goes across the country and across the border into Mexico each and every day. We're talking about billions of dollars.
Flashback.
In our community development programs, there's resources there in our family resource centers, but we also are going to have a reinstitution of the Angelino card, something that Mayor Garcetti started during COVID, that will actually provide cash assistance to people. Because, you have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work, and they are in need of cash. I have met with family members who they needed two incomes in order to make the rent. Well, one income was lost in a raid when someone was detained, and this woman with her children now is concerned that she might face being evicted and being homeless. And so it's that type of emergency assistance, and we're fortunate that there's a lot of philanthropic partners who have contributed, and many more, I hope, that will join in and contribute.
Sometimes untouched. Me, myself, and my organization, the 10 years I was trafficking, we exported back close to $3 billion of bulk U.S. currency.
You exported $3 billion of U.S. currency?
Yes, sir, in total.
And how did you export that? Was it in 18-wheelers? 18-wheelers,
tractor trailers, commercial vehicles. And there is no seizures in the 10 years.
None?
None. And I think that there's so many more things we could do here in terms of going after. That's their lifeline. And I think for law enforcement and for the last 50 years, we've been going after drugs and drug cartels the same way. It's going after the drugs, going after kingpins. We've seen that you have dinosaurs of drug lords in American prisons, which I applaud the administration. They're doing a great job. It just has to be a whole plan laid out, especially here in the United States.
Flashback.
Well, the dots are very easy to connect because you have this group known as CHIRLA, the Center for Humane Immigration Rights.
There's a group called CHIRLA, which has caught some attention, and rightfully so. Laura Powell is an attorney, and she had a great thread on this this week. And she said, if you're a Californian right now, you should know that you are funding the riots that are going on here. They've been set off by an organization called the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights LA. That's what it stands for, CHIRLA. She says it's one of the key players in fomenting all of the violent response here to immigration enforcement actions. It's an LA-based nonprofit, and it's got a huge history of taking radical positions on immigration. You know what that means. They're for illegal aliens invading the country. In 2018, they supported a campaign to abolish ICE. In fact, I checked their website this morning. I was looking over it. They've got teams of people who are dedicated to helping illegal aliens stay in the country and mount legal defenses for them to try and scramble the court process and keep illegal aliens here and prevent them from being deported. They're full-time dedicated to the invasion of the United States. That's what this group is. And right now, they currently lead something called the Los Angeles Rapid Response Network, which gathers intel about enforcement actions, that would be law enforcement, and then deploys activists to respond. That's another way of saying obstruct justice. CHIRLA has very strong ties to the Democrat Party in California. And they've supported the election of Democrat candidates through their lobbying arm. They have a very close relationship with the out-of-control Los Angeles mayor, Karen Bass.
CHRLA is the group instigating many of the riots in Los Angeles. Last year, it received $34 million in California taxpayer funds from Governor Gavin Newsom and state Democrats. The riots are violent, aggressive, and growing in size.
Well, the dots are very easy to connect because you have this group known as CHRLA, the Center for Humane Immigration Rights, Los Angeles, that, number one, is a massive contributor to Gavin Newsom. They spent $500,000 to get him elected governor. And then, what do you know, they end up getting massive funding from the state, $34 million. They use this money for things like a campaign to abolish ICE. And then, when it came to the targeted immigration operations in Los Angeles, they would be on the ground figuring out where ICE is at any given moment, where ICE agents could be found, and then they broadcast out their precise location in real time so the rioters know exactly where they are, and they can then converge on that site and attack the officers and obstruct the operations. And so, you know, this is a very clearly a key part of the problem. So I've introduced legislation saying that if you are a so-called nonprofit that is engaged in these sort of activities where you're encouraging, organizing, inciting, participating in riots, then number one, you definitely shouldn't be eligible for any public funding. But number two, you shouldn't be able to claim tax-exempt status as a nonprofit because you're not engaged in anything we want to encourage by nonprofits.
Congratulations on the podcast with Gavin Newsom. Incredible response. Everybody seems to be talking about this thing. What's your big takeaway from it?
Well, yeah, first, you know, appreciated the conversation and to be invited there. Look, it was really interesting. It was obvious that the governor wants to move to the middle on a lot of the political issues that the Democrat Party has been on the unpopular side of. The one that's making the most headlines, obviously, is biological men in women's sports. And he said he totally agrees with me, and that's a direct quote.
Were you surprised by that?
I was a little taken aback. I anticipated a little bit more of a politician answer. You could kind of see that laced in, but then he just bluntly said, look, I agree with you. It's about fairness. He's already receiving a lot of backlash by local leaders here in California for that position. And we'll see if he actually follows up that rhetoric with action, like an executive order or trying to champion the state bill that will prohibit biological men in women's sports. But the reaction so far has been quite promising.
Well, let's talk about that backlash. Scott Wiener, who's a state senator from California, called you a vile bigot. He said what Newsom said was profoundly disturbing. He says it creates a fake moral panic. California Legislative LGBTQ caucus says it was profoundly sickened and frustrated by what the governor said. How do you respond to that?
I mean, I've gone back and forth with Mr. Wiener on Twitter or X quite often. Look, I don't have to respond or justify his attacks towards me. I will say, though, that 80% of Americans want to see youth sports in general, but all sports where biological men are not competing in women's spaces or in women's sports. But look, he can name call all he wants. But I think his problem is actually with his governor, and I'm kind of see how they reconcile this, right? I mean, look, he can go back and forth with me. I'm not the governor of this state. Yeah. His own governor has actually decided to moderate on the position, at least in rhetoric. We'll see if it comes in action. And I think it's very interesting that at this moment where the Democrats are kind of in the wilderness, they're looking for their own political leader, seems as if Governor Newsom wants to try to position him as the moderate. I think he's been a total failure as governor. We could talk about that if you'd like. But at the very least, from a rhetorical standpoint, he's starting to say things that would make the Democrat Party more palatable to the rest of the country.
What's the backstory on this podcast? How did you get involved in this?
I got a phone call from Governor Newsom 2 weeks ago.
Himself, he called you himself.
That's right, yeah. Connected through Kimberly Guilfoyle. Obviously, you know, they have a shared past, yeah.
That's who connected you to?
Well,
Kimberly Guilfoyle?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So,
okay, his ex-wife, of course.
Yeah, so shared past. And I know KG, as we call her, who's now going to be the ambassador to Greece through Trump World. And I talked to the governor. He said, hey, I'm doing this podcast. I want to have you on. Would you like to come on? I said, yeah, I'll talk to anybody anytime. It's kind of my whole shtick. I'll do this on a college campus. So we went out to his podcast studio and we said, hey, let's talk about anything, you know, keep it civil, which I think we did a good job of that. And then I tried to press and challenge him on some of the core failures that I would say that he is responsible for here in California, such as homelessness and crime and poverty rate and wealth inequality. And he obviously has some, you know, tailored responses to that. But yeah, that's the backstory.
Did he change your view of him at all?
I mean, my view of him is actually the same, which is this is a guy that wants to be president more than any other human being, I think, currently alive. And I think he's willing to do what...
Of course he says not, but
well, yeah,
most
I mean,
people don't believe that.
I mean, not every governor in the country has a podcast and inviting, you know, MAGA faithful. Again, I'm not a mind reader. I can only kind of see where he's going, and it looks as if he's trying to be on the popular edge or the popular side of the issues right now. I don't know the man personally. I do think he's done destructive things to this beautiful state, a state that I love, and he's going to have to explain that, and the voters overwhelmingly across the country think negatively of it. But I will say this, credit to him. The positive thing I'll say, credit to him for being willing to have a conversation, be willing to have dialogue. I wish more people on the left would be willing to do so.
What do you think of him as a presidential candidate? Do you think he's the strongest Democrat?
I mean, I don't even know what the field would look like. I would say this, though, that he at least has some self-awareness. He didn't say this to me, but I think he at least has some self-awareness that the rest of the country thinks so negatively about the California experiment. If you were to go into Pennsylvania and say that I'm a governor of California, you're dealing from like a 20-point disadvantage. People think of the state very negatively. I think that perception is reality. He does not. And so if he were to run for the presidency in 2028, he's going to have to try to rebrand himself, and I think this podcast is his attempt to do that.
I was thinking how excited all these vineyards in Napa are that Gavin Newsom obviously won't let those burn down because obviously he needs his vineyard to launder his money through his foundations. But then I found out because he actually doesn't care if they burn down because his little money laundering company will buy up the old freaking vineyards that burned down for dirt cheap like he did in 2022, 2 years after the glass fire of 2020 burned down a property on the hillside vineyard of the Oso vineyard, 129 acres. He got it for a great deal, $14.5 million, works out to about 110,000 per acre. Why is that notable? You tell me, AI. Because it should have been going for 300,000 to 400,000 per acre in that area. But no, he doesn't care. He got it for a fire sale. Just like he tried to buy up all the Palisades with $100 million from our taxpayer money so that he could then put his friend developers in, build all these buildings, you know?
Let's bring in Judge Jeanine Pirro on this. Gavin Newsom in California is going to take money given to the state to bail them out, to help out illegal immigrants. Judge Jeanine, we know Justice with Jeanine will be airing this weekend, but first things first, weigh in on what Gavin Newsom's saying. Is he showing a big heart?
You know, if he wanted to show a big heart, Brian, I suggest that he do it for people in California who are unemployed, losing their businesses, not sure of what the future is holding.
You're going to go to California, check in on our favorite Batman villain governor?
Well, actually, we actually went out there. You know, President Trump went there right after he got inaugurated to support the wildfires. Right. And we've called on Gavin Newsom recently to declare an emergency, a disaster in downtown LA where the riots have really destroyed small businesses. And he has declined to rush that aid to small businesses that we could provide at the SBA in the form of economic injury disaster loans. And he's turning a blind eye to the fate of these small businesses where we estimate $1 billion in damage has happened to small businesses down there, and Newsom won't do it. That's why we announced we're moving out of sanctuary cities. The Small Business Administration is leading in that regard. Congress liked that so much that they actually passed a bill last week to codify the SBA moving out of sanctuary cities. If these mayors and governors won't keep their people safe, we will.
So wait, I just want to get this straight. So we saw all the buildings and businesses getting looted and burned. We saw that famous donut shop, right? Yeah. With the Mexican flags and the criminal aliens like burning cars and like torching these businesses. Some of them are small, humble businesses. Some of them are Apple stores, right? That are getting totally looted and destroyed. I think the Apple store is shut down indefinitely in downtown LA. So small or big businesses, either way, they're all shut down. And Gavin Newsom's saying no. He doesn't want help. He doesn't want like special disaster loans.
Well,
that's insane.
He doesn't want to admit they've created another man-made disaster by resisting ICE, and so we're going to keep our people safe. We're going to continue to call on him to support small businesses, and you know, beyond that, we have to relocate to areas that are safe for small businesses. To, you know, it turns out our office, we were prescient in deciding to move out of sanctuary cities before all of this because our SBA offices, both in New York and in Los Angeles, are just steps from where the riots are happening.
But you know, this effort on his part is really his own effort to make a slush fund money for illegals, because state and federal law actually bars what he calls these unemployment benefits to illegals.
Gavin Newsom strikes again. To all my Californians, you ready for this one?
Gavin
million for an organization called Soldier Entrepreneurs for Economic Development. What do you have to do, and what is one of the requirements to qualify for this $7.5 million? It says on their website, individuals who are neither U.S. citizens nor lawful permanent residents.
That was Assemblymember David Tangipa. He is outright exposing a program that Gavin Newsom has in place. And I didn't want to believe that a part of the $7 million in grants, the way to access it is that you have to be here illegally. So doing what I always do, I went and researched it. So directly on California.gov's website, the program that he mentioned, which is the Social Entrepreneurs for Economic Development Grant, is right on the website. If you scroll down and you look at the information session Q&A and you open it up, and of course, if you look at Q2, it says, who are the seed target population eligible to receive entrepreneurship training and micro grants? And the answer says, target populations are individuals who face significant barriers to employment, specifically, number 1, individuals with limited English proficiency, regardless of immigration and citizen status, individuals who are neither U.S. citizen nor lawful permanent residents. This includes individuals who may not be lawfully present in the United States and individuals who have been granted deferred action for childhood arrivals, temporary protected status. I mean, at least got to give it up to Gavin Newsom. He does mention U.S. citizens. They are listed the last of them all because it says in the last line, in addition, seed is open to all individuals in the target population, including other immigrants, refugees, asylees, and United States citizens. So that's right, Gavin Newsom did still consider us, but we're the last of all of them. But it's a fitting order because we all know that Gavin Newsom, he doesn't care about the law-abiding citizens of California. He cares about the criminals and the illegal. And yes, this is a grant from our tax-paying dollars.
It is improper, and there's been an emergency stay that's been brought by a group in California, and it is actually one of the plaintiffs is a woman immigrant who's a councilwoman from El Salvador who is now a citizen, who is the lead plaintiff on this, objecting to the fact that this governor has made a decision to take taxpayers' money, $75 million of it, and to give it to regional nonprofits who will then pass the money around so that, and some of these nonprofits, by the way, we have no idea who they are. He's not naming all of them. When they give the money out to illegals, that way no one will have any record of it. We're not going to know who they are. Government keeps no records, and it's basically just a slush fund in his effort to try to make sure that he continues to have good relations with the immigrants who are illegal in this country, and it is just plain illegal.
That $100 million Fire Aid concert, guess what? Sue Pascoli over at Circling the News and her deep dive investigative journalism discovered that the second round of $50 million funding, guess who took a Fire Aid grant? Let me tell you so you don't have to think too hard. Gavin Newsom and his Cal Volunteers office took a Fire Aid grant. So that's cool. We'd like to know how much you took and exactly what you did with the money for Altadena and Pacific Palisades. And I mean dollar for dollar what you did with it. Thank you.
But if you're not happy in the U.S., if you're complaining all the time, very simply, you can leave. You can leave right now. Come back if you want. Don't come back. It's okay, too. But if you're not happy, you can leave.